Madam Chair, we are good to go.
Welcome, everybody. We're a smaller group than usual, but that's okay. We'll have lots of fun. And as she referred to, I am chairman of the Historic Preservation Commission. And met both of you at interviews, and so wear our name tags most of the time. So we're glad you're here with us, but we need to start out with roll call. And what I told the commission, quite a few months ago, I had read where taking oral roll call as a way of honoring the people who are there. So periodically I'll say, would you like to honor us, Robin, with a roll call? So Robin, we will be honored with you.
All right, honoring our chair, Jan Stevens.
Here.
And let's see, our alternate Quarternick.
Here.
Our Historic Preservation Commission advisor, Mr. Scott.
Here.
Our council member liaison, Ed Marshall.
Present.
And I believe that's everyone. We do not have quorum today, so we can't make any big decisions as a commission.
Well, that will be coming. Roll call, and we'll have those introductions. Have Joe answer roll call, but I think everyone now knows who he is. And we're always glad to have you around, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
And Madam Chair, I will be leading us into doing some more thorough
Okay.
introductions here shortly.
So I think it's up to you now, Robin.
All right, I will take it away. Let me see if I can share my screen. Because I thought we would have a little bit more fun than just going around the table. Let's go full screen. There we go. All right, so what I have for us is an activity called Would You Rather Wildwood Style, Historic Wildwood Style. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go around, we're going to introduce ourselves, tell a little bit about who you are, why you're here, what your role is, what you might be looking forward to, whatever you'd like to share with the group. And then we're going to end with a would you rather question. And that's going to give us a little bit of an idea of who you are. And it's also going to be a lot of fun. So with that, who would like to get us started? Chair Stevens, you've been nominated.
Oh, I'm so honored. Thank you. As you know, I'm Jan Stevens, and I'm on the commission for one more year, and then I have to walk away, like Steve had to do recently. And it's been a good ride. I was an alternate, as Ms. Quarternick is right now, and then sadly, due to the death of one of the commissioners, I was then appointed as a regular commissioner. And it's been a very good ride. It's been exciting. Before I became a member of the commission, I met with the commission one evening at their meeting and talked to them about my family, who came here in the late 1790s into what is now Wildwood. And my fourth great grandfather, my third great grandfather, and two of my fourth great uncles all had land grants. So it was before Missouri was a state. This was Louisiana Territory. So I shared with you what I knew at that point about my family, and it's always very exciting. So historic preservation is just something that just grabs hold of you and it just runs with you and you can't let it loose. So it's been great. Looking forward to working with each of you now as youth members. And Avi was around for the Route 66, so I know him a little bit. So it's going to be fun. And we're really thankful that you wanted to be part of us.
Very good. I'm Debbie
Oh,
Quarternick.
whoa.
Oh,
Madam Chair has a question to answer.
Oh, I thought you said that was it.
No, this is going to be part of your introduction.
Oh, part of your
I
introduction.
don't know my question. What would I rather do?
All right, Madam Chair, would you rather live in a dog trot cabin or the Marycliff residence?
I'd rather be in the cabin. America's too big.
Now, for those of you who do not know the difference between these two, a dog trot cabin is a one-story home with a large breezeway or hallway. It was pre-air conditioning, so that actually helped cool the home. And it was around in early Wildwood in the late 19th and I think early 20th centuries or so. It is also what was originally Mr. Scott's home. He lives in what was formerly a dog trot cabin. Well, actually, it still is. It's just there's additions to it. The Marycliff residence, however, was a big mansion during the resort and clubhouse era of Wildwood. It was built in 1905 by one of St. Louis's more prominent families. I believe the president of the United Elevator and Grain Company and the Calore Flour Mills Company was originally the owner. In the 1940s, it became a clubhouse for the Brewers and Maltsters Benevolent Association before in 1949, it was sold to the Marianists, which is a religious organization. And it's been used as a retreat center ever since. And it's even more famous because of Brother Mel, who is an artist and contributed, designed the chapel actually of the Marycliff residence today. So pretty interesting building. Thank you, Madam Chair. And you said dog trot cabin, right?
Cabin. My
Cabin in the woods.
grandparents lived in a cabin very similar to that.
All right, now you can go.
Okay. So my name is Debbie Quarternick. My family bought the property that I live on today and lived out here, started probably about 1950. So I had run for Ward 6 Alderman once upon a time and just missed it by a slight margin at 10:30 at night when the votes finally cast. So the next step was historic preservation, which I thought, well, I have a sincere interest in the history of this area, having been here for so long. And then when working with a few of you guys at the most recent Main Street concert, when they said something about being a youth sponsor, well, I was a Girl Scout leader and I was a 4-H leader and always helping at the schools and whatnot. So I thought, well, of course, I would want to be involved in helping you guys because I think it's great that the youth are interested in historic preservation as well and kind of being liaisons for our city. So if you guys ever have any questions or you want to go see some sites in the area that you're not familiar with, feel free to reach out to any of us, and especially me, and I'd be happy to show you around or tell you something that I know about whatever. So anyway, we're happy to have you around and look forward to our time together.
Alternate Quarternick. Would you rather be pelted with tennis ball-sized hail or walk alone on Zombie Road at night?
You could hit me with tennis balls. 'Cause I've been on Zombie Road during the day on a horse and it was scary.
Are you familiar with the history of Zombie Road? So Zombie Road is located in our historic Glencoe community down where the Al Foster Trail is. Are you familiar with the Rock Hollow Trail?
Rockwood Reservation.
The mini train? You know where Old State Road is and Highway 109? Yeah, so back in that area was formerly the Lawler Ford Road. It was constructed in the late 1860s when Glencoe Marble Company was really big in the area, and it provided access to the Merrimack River and the railroad from Old State. It became Zombie Road in the 1950s. And it was rumored there was an escaped zombie killer from a mental asylum. A judge's widow was killed, and I think Chair Stevens might comment on that. And it's been nationally proclaimed as the most dangerous road in America. And it's in fact famous. It's written about in many books. However, it is now the Rock Hollow Trail. It's been paved, so it's very nice. You should definitely go during the day. If you go there after dark, however, you will be heavily fined by the city of Wildwood, so do not do it.
And there's no more glow in the dark paint on the trees to scare you at night like there used to be. You can't go down there with your date anymore like my sisters did in the 50s and 60s.
Actually, there's a caveat.
Yeah,
2 or 3 years ago, based upon lobbying by the mountain bike community and others, you can actually stay down on Rock Hollow Trail now till 10 p.m. So you
Yeah.
can be there in the dark if you like.
And around Halloween, that could be 6 o'clock at night too.
Sure can. You can spend a long time in the dark down there.
Yeah, actually, if you come out to our Shivering Shadows run, you can run all Zombie Road in the dark with some other runners every
Not
year.
defined.
Yeah.
Friday before Halloween usually.
Yes.
All right. Next.
Excuse me, I'm Steve Scott. Been serving on the Historical Preservation Commission. I did my 2 terms, term limit off, but I wouldn't go away. So they appointed me as an advisor. But it's my interest in old houses. We didn't move here until 1987. I grew up in Kirkwood and Webster, and we lived in a turn of the century house in Webster for quite a few years. Moved to Massachusetts, north of the Boston area, lived in a house that was built in 1690. It was just a little cabin. So I was getting older in the houses. Moved to New Mexico, and then came back, and we found a house here in Wildwood. And as Robin said, it was originally a dog trot cabin. It was built in the 1850s and has been changed. They've closed the dog trot up, so there's no breezeway through the middle. You don't have to go outside to go to the other room. You don't have to go outside to go upstairs to bed. So you can stay inside, but the house has been modified over the time. So I've really become fascinated with residential vernacular architecture. And that's why I just keep staying around, because there's so many neat old houses and other commercial buildings too in Wildwood. So it's really something that I think we want to save. They can be adapted, just like our house. You wouldn't want to live in it as a 4-room dog trot cabin. You couldn't live there. Had no plumbing, no electricity, nothing that we're used to today. But it has been modified and been changed. And that's what happens with houses. So, and I think it's important that we save what we have that's old and we able to modify it and make it work today. So that's my interest, and that's why I'm still around. So look forward to working with you guys.
Mr. Scott. Would you rather have your lunch at JB Wellness or Big Chief Roadhouse?
I don't think there's a question. I like they've got the best brisket in town.
Which one?
The Big Chief.
Big Chief.
What did it-
That and their brisket chili. But
So the reason I chose these 2 restaurants is because they're in 2 of Route 66's most historic buildings. JB Wellness is located in historic Grover, so just behind us. It was originally used as a general store, and in fact was used a couple times as a general store by different owners. In 1920s, it was a real popular place. Just to the east of it was Funk's Grove. That's where, the community gathered and did their celebrating and picnics, that kind of thing. And it also has the history of being Wildwood's first city hall in 1995, all the way through 2009. We're actually in Wildwood's third city hall right now. So famous building. Big Chief, you probably know about Big Chief, right? Did you know it had 62 cabins behind it back in the day? It was one of the area's largest motor courts in the Route 66 era. It was built in 1929. And it had a whole horseshoe of tourist cottages is what they were called. So people could stay there. There was a gas station, a restaurant, post office, a whole bunch of things. And it was called Big Chief Highway Hotel. Now it is just the Big Chief Roadhouse and a great place to grab dinner or lunch. Oh, I'm fast forwarding too quick.
My name's Ayushi. Gonna be a junior at Lafayette High School next school year or this school year. I moved to Wildwood in I think 2014 from Michigan. And before that, I lived in Seattle for a bit and then I was born in New Mexico, but I've mainly grown up in Wildwood. And so I decided to apply for the position because I feel like there was like a really cool opportunity to learn more about the history because I've been here for so long and like learn more about the area. And I'm just excited to learn more about the history of Wildwood.
Fantastic. Now, are you familiar with Rockwood's Reservation?
I think so.
Have you hiked there?
No.
No. Okay, I'm going to fast forward one then.
I'm a Lafayette graduate too.
All right, Ayushi, would you rather go back in time and eat at a popular catfish restaurant, or would you prefer to attend a show at St. Louis's first dinner theater?
I would do St. Louis's first dinner theater. Just seems more interesting. Not a
I
big fan
thought
of
so
seafood.
too. But most people remember the catfish restaurant. So the reason we had these choices is because today it is actually New Community Church. It's actually just behind us again in historic Grover. But formerly it was the location of the Barn Dinner Playhouse, which was built in 1971. It was the whole St. Louis area's first dinner theater. And it only operated for about a decade before it turned into Bubba and Koi's Southern Style Catfish Restaurant. And thereafter, it only operated 2 years. However, if you talk to anybody, anyone who's been around for some time, they all remember this catfish restaurant that was only around for 2 years. But good choice on the dinner theater, I agree.
That was one of my first jobs, was the Barn Dinner Theater.
Oh, really?
As a hostess.
That's a fun fact.
You
Thank
must have been
you.
just a little
Red,
girl.
white checkered shirt and dark blue pants that we had to wear.
I'm of youth. I'm going to be a sophomore at Lafayette High School. I was formerly on the student Road 66 task force, and that was a really fun experience for me. I was the events co-lead, so it was really fun conducting all the events we did in April, which was Route 66 month, with our scavenger hunt and the movie night where I got to MC, which was a very fun experience. Also, throughout the time of me being on the student Route 66 task force, I got to learn a lot about the history of Wildwood. We took plenty of tours around, saw the various historic signs, various sites. And I hope to continue that experience this year and be part of the restoration of the Essen Log Cabin and other such projects. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may. We have an honored guest.
Tried to sneak
You
in.
could be an honorary member.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, thank you so much. I did hear that this meeting was taking place. I admit, I saw the sign. So I thought I would just stop in to say hello and introduce myself. I think we've met already right at the concert. So I just wanted to come by and say thank you. I'm excited that you're going to be involved, and it's a big deal. So it's great. It's a great group too that you're with. A very passionate group. I always notice that with the historic preservation. put a lot of good effort into it. So, thank you so much. And I don't want to intrude on the meeting.
Oh, no, no, no. We have a question for you, Mr. Mayor. And then we'll come back to you, I promise.
That's historical. You know what that building is, the Bubba and Coy's? Anyone did you talk about it
We
already?
just
Yeah,
got the
yeah.
feel, yes.
The community church, yeah. That was.
Or AKA Catfish Cathedral.
That's what I heard,
It's that
yeah.
transition
I
time.
love the history.
Had in the center, I think it was part of the theater, a
It was in the
rotating
round. Mhm.
disc
Yeah.
that rotated. When it was Bubba and Clyde, they had like a boat and a little swamp scene there, and it would slowly rotate while you would eat your catfish.
Pretty cool.
I don't know if the church is still using that or not, but
They're not.
I haven't been to church there. I've been to eat there though.
The new building though, right? The new community church.
Well,
The front.
as a fun fact for New Community Church, when Cherry Hills Golf Course was being considered for development, we had so many people pre-registered to speak. We actually used New Community Church to host the meetings for the conversion of the golf course, the enclaves of Cherry Hills. So
Standing room only.
you betcha.
Nice. All right, Mr. Mayor. Would you rather have your chicken dinner at the former Pond Hotel or historic Bethel Church? Now, before you answer, let me tell you a little bit about it. The Pond Hotel was originally owned by the Essen family. You may have heard of the Essen Log Cabin. Youth members? Yes. The hotel was constructed in 1841, though it did burn down in 1876. It was a stagecoach stop on Manchester Road. And it was ran by Emma Essen by the early 1900s until 1940. It was a popular place for dinner for cyclists, and Emma had seen some famous fried chicken that was talked about there. However, they have a competitor in Bethel Church, which is also famous for its chicken supper, which started in 1924. Bethel Church is a beautiful old church in our community. It was built in 1875, though the congregation started meeting much earlier. And there is a big, beautiful old cemetery back behind it that serves Civil War veterans, but several others as well. So, Mr. Mayor, what's your pleasure?
It's a tough question there, but I guess I would answer it as, well, we have the church still today, so I would. Well, that's the only option at this point, unless I want to sit in the grass. So sadly, yeah, the hotel's not there anymore.
It's not.
There's a monument there on that site for the cyclist club, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's about it.
Yeah, that was one of Wildwood's real tragedies, actually. If we could have saved a historic building on Route 66, I think that would have been one aside from Big Chief. So that sometimes happens in historic preservation. Our hearts get broken, but we live another day and we carry forward.
I'm gonna leave you, but thank you so much. And I just love the buzz and the excitement that I've seen this group create, especially around Route 66. Big anniversary coming up for that, right?
1926, or sorry, 2026, yes.
Anyway, I think it's just so amazing, because I have to drive on that every day to go in and out of my neighborhood. And so I think it's the coolest thing ever to be able to say that I get on Route 66 every day. And to think of all those people traveling through that road before the interstate highway system, that was probably the way to the west. And so we get to see it every day. And I wonder if people kind of forget just how important that road is. How many stories, if that road could talk, how many road trips, how many probably arguments in the car or something that road has seen, or people stopping along the way.
All the stories it could tell, right?
Right. So I think it's just really precious because there's still fragments of that road. to be able to actually step on the Route 66 and say, this is the actual pavement those cars drove on. That's cool. There's not much left of it. Yeah. So, all right, thank you so much for letting me stop in and say hello, and excited to see more. You know, we will celebrate Route 66. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, speaking of epic adventures on Route 66, Youth, would you rather go back in time to run the first Continental Foot Race or cycle up Smith's Hill, Wildwood's former Everest, I should say, on New Year's Eve? Would you like to know a little bit more about it?
Yes.
All right, so Smith's Hill is located near the St. Louis County, Franklin County line, which is the far western edge of Wildwood. In fact, I think the monument is actually slightly outside Wildwood, but we claim it anyway. Anyway, there used to be this cyclist challenge, pretty much from where the Pond Historic Marker, which is where the former Pond Hotel was located, about 30 miles. And the last thing that these cyclists would conquer as a rite of passage, so to speak, would be Smith's Hill. And it was a mecca. It was a big hill. And apparently for a time it was a thing to cycle up Smith's Hill on New Year's Eve. And this monument was erected by the St. Louis Cycling Club, one of the oldest in the nation. And in honor of Victor Smith, who actually helped the cyclists that were going up the hill. He would offer them lodging and food, and I think he even sold them sandwiches for a while, but then when he stopped, the business part, he just kind of helped them. So anyway, he was an important friend to the cyclists here in Wildwood. The Transcontinental Foot Race, you should know a little bit about, right?
Yeah, mostly.
It was the big race bringing recognition to Route 66 when it first opened up. It was from Los Angeles to New York City, and these runners ran 3,400 miles in less than 3 months. There were 276 runners to start, and 77 dropped out the first day. So many runners developed foot problems on this foot race that the race became known as the Bunyan Derby. And for the final leg of the race, there were only 55 runners left, and even fewer on the last day. Andy Payne has the claim to fame, and this race was run in 1928 on Route 66, and the runners stayed overnight in Wildwood at where Wildwood Christian Church stands today. That's why I brought it up.
I would probably have to go with the cycle up Smith's.
You don't want.
You don't have 3 months, right?
All right, good choice. I would have chosen that one too.
Hi, I'm Lucky Gokul, and I have been here for most of my life. I came to Wildwood in preschool, and it's so special to me because it was my first home, because we lived in an apartment before. And the reason that I'm really interested in learning more about Wildwood's history is because I just think that it's so interesting, and I see simple things every day, but I don't really realize the history around it because I go to Wildwood Middle School right now. I'm going to 7th grade, and I see Big Chief every day. So I just think that it's so cool that I see it every day, but I don't know all the history that it has, all of its stories. So I really want to know more about that.
All right, Lucky. Would you rather be written about in Winston Churchill's famous novel, The Crisis? And this isn't Winston Churchill, the one you probably know about or abroad. This is a famous American novelist. Or would you rather be front page news in the Watchman Advocate, which was one of Wildwood's, actually it was Wildwood area's early newspaper?
I think I'd rather be written in Winston Churchill's novel because I think it's just really awesome to be written in a book. In the book. I think that would be really because that would kind of last forever. So
Choice. That novel was written in 1901. And it was set in the historic Glencoe community. So Wildwood has some famous to it. It was based on Angelica and James Yeatman, who originally owned the property that Mary Cliff stands on today. So that mansion that we talked about right at the beginning. And it's just got really beautiful views of the Merrimack River. Just gorgeous, gorgeous place. The Watchman Advocate was owned by Fred Essen. So you're going to hear the Essen name quite a lot, which is why we're reconstructing a log cabin. Fred Essen eventually became a US congressman, so really important to this area. And he owned the Watchman Advocate. And as I said, they were just early stories about Wildwood settlers. Of course, it was before it became Wildwood. So this area was the Merrimack Township. Thank you.
I'm next, huh?
You're next.
Well, I'm the old piece around this. I'm Ed Marshall, and I moved to this area before it was Wildwood, and was involved in the incorporation and the charrettes about what the city would look like. And then I think in 1997, after our charter was passed, I was the first council member appointed by the council to fill an unexpired seat, which didn't mean anything. You had to run the next year, so I ran then. So I was on the council for 8 years, ran and with the mayor for 4 years. And then I got back on the council for another 8 years. Then I moved and I had to sit out for a couple of years and ran an election and lost a couple times. And the ward I live in now was probably the worst ward for me to move into. But now I'm serving my beginning of my 22nd year as an elected official in the city. So as we go back through this stuff, there's very few of these things that I don't remember having the discussions, but the parts that I found so amazing about just liking the history is every time something would come up, you'd learn something, or somebody come up and want to develop something. And I guess one that I always think about more often than not driving around is where the Methodist church is now. When that came up for development, uncovered the old Pony Express stable, and down in the well that were there were all stones. So as a city, we decided we should save all of those. So now those are located strategically. Anniversary Park, the pillars that are there are the stones that came out of that Pony Express changing station, which is now, would have been in the parking lot of the Methodist church now. And as you just go around all of the history that pops up in different parts, and it's a large city, and you get into different areas and it's like, wow, I know there's a history behind that. And as people would come in for development, you think, boy, that's really something. Way back, as we were trying the historic preservation, there was always an ongoing kind of pushing between Wildwood Historic Association and the historic preservation. So kind of watching that history go through. But there's tremendous amount of history and a tremendous amount of wealth of knowledge of the residents who live here. And every time you get into something like that, you look at somebody and say, well, I don't know, but I know someone else might be able to find out about that. So I just think it's intriguing that we've been blessed enough to have so many volunteers to dig into it. And an expert here that's doing a great job. It's interesting because and I think a lot more people, if they got a little bit more knowledge about where the history really was, it's actually in their backyard, that they would say, hey, that's pretty cool. I should know more about it. So I'm anxious to learn with all of you. So.
Well, sounds like everyone's giving their whole life story. So I guess I'll give my spiel. Oh, wait, no, I haven't done your question. Sorry, we have to do the question first.
Don't do the hail one. Oh.
Would you rather attend Eureka High School or Old Pond School? Now, before you answer, let me give the spiel. Eureka High School has some history to it. It was established in 1908. It began in the Opera House in town, in the same building that housed the town's drugstore. It's been open for over a century. In fact, some early students actually came to Eureka High School from as far as Howells Island, which if you know where Howells Island is, it's in the farthest part of Wildwood. So they actually traveled by boat, by horse, and then school bus to Eureka High School every day to go to school. So if you ever think it's tough rolling out of bed and and getting to school nowadays, try living in Howells Island. Old Pond School, however, is actually the third Old Pond School. It was built in 1914 after the two other school buildings actually burned down. So this third one was built with fire-resistant materials, the stucco, horsehair stucco. And it was operated until the 1950s as a one-room schoolhouse. Then it was used for various things. Old Pond Elementary was opened at that time, so that's where the school went. But it was donated to the city of Wildwood in 2001, I believe, and restored. And it's now on the National Register of Historic Places, so it's a very significant landmark to our community. So.
Well, I'm old enough to be involved in the Old Pond School from the time we got it, all the work, all the arguments to what we have now, so it's great,
Old Pond School.
yeah.
I would have chosen Eureka High School, but that's because I went there. All right, so now I'll give you my spiel. So my family moved to this area, right when Wildwood was becoming Wildwood, maybe just after. And I attended Eureka High School. My best friend's father was actually on the first Wildwood City Council. But I didn't know that at the time because we were kids and we just didn't pay attention. So after high school, I went to college. I went to several different states. I went to graduate school for planning in New York, upstate. And when I was up there, what got me interested in historic preservation, I interned actually with a group of organizations. It was 11 different organizations, some historical nonprofits, the State Museum, a restoration organization, just all different kinds of organizations having to do with historic preservation and history came together and formed a group called Partners for Albany Stories. And what I got hired to do was help them with their citywide interpretive plan for the city of Albany, which had 400 years of history. So it was a pretty cool project and it got me very excited about history. But after that, I started my career as a planner for the city of St. Petersburg. And even though I was hired probably because of my historic preservation background, I ultimately ended up leading all of our urban agriculture activities. So I got to learn all about urban gardening and hydroponic systems and aquaponics. And I was involved in the code update for that and also establishing a youth-led urban farm project in one of our city food deserts. So that was kind of an area that was disenfranchised, where people didn't have access to fresh, healthy food. So we were trying to establish a garden project there. After that, I ended up in Alaska for a few years, also as a city planner for Kodiak Island, Alaska, but also as a sled dog handler musher for a period of time. I came back home after the pandemic, and I've been with the city of Wildwood for 3 years and staff liaison to their Historic Preservation Commission. And I can't tell you just how much history I have learned since coming back to this area. Like, I grew up here. I went to Rockwood reservations all the time as a kid. I had lots of friends in the Wildwood area. And so I was here before we had a town center. And then I came back here and all of a sudden we have a city hall here, we have the Wildwood Hotel, and it's just a completely different place from what I left. So that's my crazy history.
We want to see your question though.
You want to see my question? All right, would I rather get my kicks on having picnics and festivals at Funk's Grove, which we talked about, or country line dancing at Stovall's Grove? Are you guys familiar with Stovall's Grove? All right, Stovall's was established in the historic community of Hollow in far western Wildwood. It was originally a dance hall, tavern, general store, post office, stagecoach stop, and even a watering stop for horses during the Civil War. So it's been many different things. There's really just a whole commercial area that was once there. But now it is a dance hall. It was also destroyed by fire. You're gonna hear that a lot in our history because back in the day, houses just were because of the nature of the appliances we were using, like the lamps and the way the houses were built, it just happened more frequently, I think. But anyway, now today it is famous for its barbecue and country music. And is on the city's historic register. So I have to say that despite my horrible dancing skills, I would probably choose Stovall's Grove because I've had some fun there. All right.
Well, my name's Joe Vunich. I'm the Director of Planning and Parks. I was one of the original 4 employees hired by the city. And so I began working for the city in August of 1995, prior to its incorporation. And I have been here since that time, so I'm closing in on 29 years. Seen a lot of changes. I've been part of a lot of changes. Hopefully, most people in the room think they've been positive. And as a fun fact, as of May 13th, I'm working with my 7th mayor. And of course, since Mr. Marshall's in the room, I'll say he was the best.
Cause I remember when Stovall's was an election polling place, so
What would you have said if Mayor Garitano was still in the room?
he still knew, it doesn't matter.
You know, you did say this on camera, like to the crowd, right?
Since he's in the room. But I, as the director of the department, I just want to welcome all 3 of you. It's great to have you participate. And as Ms. Gordonek mentioned, if you have questions and members, your mentors aren't available, certainly Robin and I will do our very best to help. Just think it's a great opportunity for us as much as you. So thank you.
All right, Director Vunich, I have to go find the one that we missed. There we go. Would you rather bring back the working horses at Rockwoods Reservation or fire up the old lime kiln?
Well, those working horses were used to denude the slopes and valleys and everything in Rockwoods Reservation. So I'd be glad if those working horses never return. So I'll be in the lime kiln firing it up on that cold winter's day.
So if you don't know, Rockwoods Reservation was actually the state's first conservation area. And it was, before that, it was a mining town for limestone. And there's still remnants to this day on one of the trails that's actually named after it, of that old lime kiln that you see in that photo there, which was built in the 1860s. Lime was poured in from the top of it and heated to 800 degrees Fahrenheit, which converted the stone to lime, which came out from the bottom of it. So you should probably go to Rockwoods Reservation and check out some of those trails. All right, we made it around the table.
That was interesting.
Okay, so with that, we're gonna go into our orientation, which hopefully won't take too long. Okay, so the idea behind our orientation today is to really just familiarize you with the commission, kind of why we're here and what we're doing and how it's formed and some of what gives it its power. So without further ado, I think I'm just gonna get started. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna come on. All right, so first earlier, Mr. Marshall, so understanding the structure and responsibility granted to the Historic Preservation Commission. And earlier, Mr. Marshall mentioned our city charter. Does anyone know what a city charter is?
Yeah.
Director Bunich.
This is much smaller.
Constitution.
Yes, it is our city constitution. This is what basically gives
Sorry,
us
Mr.
our
Marshall.
power.
You stole your.
And it gives us our form and structure as a city. It establishes, how we do what we do. And that power was given to us by who? Anybody?
Yeah.
The voters of Wildwood.
Yes, the voters of Wildwood, but how do we get to be a city charter?
A chartered city.
Charter city, yes.
Well, there was a charter commission
Several.
and they wrote a charter and then they presented it to the voters.
Yes,
But it's enabled under a state statute.
there you go.
Constitution of the state of Missouri.
Yes, so so us being a charter city is enabled under state statute with Missouri. So we're able to govern, but we must do it within the bounds of state law, federal law, and anything that is so-called above us. But we do have broad powers as a local government. And speaking to Director Bunich's first answer, this is the city's organization chart. And you might see that the top of our organization is not mayor and city council, but in fact, the citizens of Wildwood, because they really, they're the ones who elect us. They're the ones who give us the right to be here and to be in their government. So under the under the citizens of Wildwood, we have our mayor and council. Who knows how many city council members we have in the city of Wildwood? Who has a guess? And Director Bunich, you can't
I know,
answer this.
shut up.
Okay, I have 10. We'll see who gets closest.
Wow,
No, you already answered.
Oh.
Are you going with 12 or 10?
I'll go with 10.
Okay.
Wait. 7?
7, okay.
11.
11. That's what I probably would have guessed too if I didn't already know. But the city of Wildwood actually has 16 city council members. And that's because we have 8 wards and we have 2 council members from each ward. And this kind of goes back to the incorporation of the city, but I'm not going to get into that history today. Under the mayor and council, we have our standing council committees, and this organization chart is a little outdated, by the way, so don't necessarily, some of these committees have changed. But anyway, we have our standing council committees. So these are city council members that work on specific committees towards specific goals, such as economic development, the planning and parks committee, et cetera. Then we also have our boards and commissions, and these are citizen volunteers that are appointed by the mayor with the consent of city council to serve in various capacities. And that's where you'll find the Historic Preservation Commission. And you'll see this line here is slightly below our council committees. So sometimes we'll make a decision at the Historic Preservation Commission level. It will go up and be reviewed by committee. And so they might also take action upon it. And then it goes up to city council who makes the final decision. So there's a bit of a hierarchy here, and that's where you are in the hierarchy. Anybody want to add anything to that? Okay. Under that, we have our city administrator who manages City Hall. We have our municipal judge, our city clerk, our prosecuting attorney, our city attorney, our city treasurer, and city marshal. And then we have the departments that manage the day-to-day business of getting things done at the city of Wildwood. And that's where you'll find our director of planning and parks. And you'll find me, the planner, under him doing some of these job duties. Any questions? All right. City Council, the reason the Historic Preservation Commission exists is because City Council basically wished it into existence by adopting an ordinance for it. So this is in the city's code book. And it gives all the specifics of what the Historic Preservation Commission is, what it does, what its purpose is, its powers and duties. So all the authority that we have as a commission actually came down from a decision that was made at the city council level. And this is in your binders today. So if you want some really fun reading, take that home with you and read it line by line, and you'll know everything about the Historic Preservation Commission. All right, and then that document, the Historic Preservation and Restoration Code, gives the commission the authority to create its own bylaws, which governs the commission. So the commission adopts its own bylaws for how it's going to conduct its business. Anything you want to say to that? All right, so this is the makeup of the commission. And this has changed recently. We actually, it took us about a year, and that's why you are here as our first youth members, because we had to take an
We're
ordinance.
making history.
Yeah.
Previously.
We had to, we kind of drafted it at Historic Preservation Commission level, and then it had to go up through the various reviews up to City Council, who eventually adopted it as an ordinance and updated the makeup of the commission. But now we have 7 regular members, of which Debbie is about to be appointed alternate Quarternick. We have 2 youth members. We have 2 alternate members, and we'll talk a little bit about that in my next slide. We have our 2 commission liaisons, and right now those are vacant, but we have a planning and zoning commission liaison. So that's from the Planning and Zoning Commission. That's so we can kind of cross-pollinate what we do. And we have an Architectural Review Board liaison. We have 2 City Council liaisons, of which Mr. Marshall is one of them. And we have a Historic Preservation Commission advisor, who's also a new position, and that's Mr. Scott's role. Mr. Scott actually termed out in the last year. He served 6 years on the commission. And we were able to bring him back as an advisor to us. So he can't vote anymore, but he can contribute his expertise as both an architect and a long-term resident and lover of all things historic. And then finally, lately, we've had a seat at the table for the Wildwood Historical Society, which is our nonprofit arm. So they're an organization that's in far western Wildwood. They have a museum there, and they take on the research of Wildwood's history. They have a research library. They have a museum. They meet and they bring speakers, and they also collect historic artifacts too. So all in all, there's 17 people sitting up on the dais in city council chambers. And we also have our 2 staff liaisons, Director Vinich and myself.
Before you go any further,
Yes.
I think I'm strange. What's that hanging around their necks?
Would you like to talk about that, Chair Stevens?
I would be delighted to. A couple of years ago, or was it just a year ago? No, within the last 2 years, we were honored. We've received several awards. We received one in the rotunda of the Capitol in Jefferson City. And then we received one that's represented here by the Daughters of the American Revolution. We received their Historical Preservation Award for the work that we have done, mainly on the historical markers that are throughout the city, and then the Route 66 task force that we had. And so the things hanging around the necks were a little historic medal, so to speak. And each person is holding their individual certificates from the Daughters of the American Revolution. It was a complete surprise to me. It was my DAR chapter who did this, and I didn't know what they were up to. until it was announced. And then after that, the task force, the student task force also received recognition from them. And the certificates and everything were passed out in here after they were recognized in the council meeting. And then we had, last October, Robin and I went to Kansas City for a convention, and Wildwood Historical Preservation Commission was recognized. We had a little trophy. It's after someone's really pretty class, and a certificate that for the work that we've been doing. So it was exciting to be able to go accept these awards on behalf of the city, and kind of get Wildwood on the map, so to speak, that, hey, good things are going on here.
Sure. And the reason I chose this photo wasn't necessarily to brag about us, though Chair Stevens does that so well. But actually to give you a sense, because when we're all sitting at our different seats on the dais, it can look spread out and not as many people, but there's actually quite a few of us on the Historic Preservation Commission all working together. And there's even more numbers now that you're a part of us as well. So we're going to be a little squished,
That's okay.
I think, going forward up there.
We like that.
But we work well together and we get a lot of things done. So it's a pretty great group to be a part of. All right, voting rights. Abiyuks, I'm going to pick on you because you should know some of these terms, having been on the task force. What is a quorum?
It's out there.
Should
Should I read it?
I even have text there. All
Should
right,
I read it out? Or,
you're welcome to, yes.
okay, it's the minimum number of officers or members of a body that is required to be present at a given meeting in order to conduct business.
Yes, so in order to conduct official business, there must be a quorum of the official body. And in our case, the quorum is the majority of voting members. So we have 6 members that are needed to make a quorum for HPC. So you might have heard me say earlier that we don't have a quorum today. We can't make any big decisions. That's because we only have 1, 2, 3 voting members in the room. So we aren't close to our 6-member quorum today. Regular members, council liaisons, and commission liaisons all have a vote according to our code. So there's actually 11 voting members. And again, 6 of them are needed to make quorum. Alternates can vote when they're needed to make quorum. So alternates are kind of the stand-ins. If we can't meet quorum and an alternate is present, we can have them stand in as a regular member and they get to vote for that particular meeting, but normally they wouldn't. The HPC advisor does not have a vote, sorry. The Wildwood Historical Society does not have a vote because they're not part of our official makeup. Again, they have a seat because our chair gave permission for them to participate in our meetings as a representative of that organization. And youth members have an honorary vote. And I think I've explained this a few times, but basically due to legal reasons, we did look into it, I promise. We could not extend the vote to our youth members. However, we want you to have a voice in the process. So what we're going to do is at every commission meeting, if someone makes a motion and that motion gets seconded, and we'll talk about Robert's rules in just a minute, before we take the vote, we're going to ask you what your honorary vote is. And that's your opportunity to state your vote, state your reasons, what have you. And then the commission will take their vote and your vote will not count towards the official decision, but we will record it in the official meeting minutes. And that way you do have a voice, you do matter, you're part of our business, you're part of the group. But unfortunately we couldn't give you the official vote. Any questions? Yeah. All right. Chair Stevens, how does the commission manage themselves in an orderly way when conducting their business?
We follow Robert's Rules of Order.
Yes.
Duly revised.
Robert's Rules is actually a big, like,
Not quite.
big chunky Bible. Well, it's pretty big. It's pretty big. And our city attorney, I think, goes to sleep with it. But really, at the end of the day, I think our commission generally just makes basic motions, which is someone motions to, make a certain action, adopt a policy or endorse a project, for example. So they might say, well, actually, Chair Stevens, make a motion, please.
I move we continue with the details for the Essen Log Cabin reconstruction.
And who would like to second that motion?
Can I do that? I'll second it.
This is all fake because we do not have quorum, so we can't do
Right.
an official.
So someone else has to second it and then they can proceed from there.
All right, so Chair Stevens, what comes next?
Then we have discussion. And sometimes it's very short and sometimes it's very long. But everyone has a chance to speak what they believe and to ask questions about, well, what about this and what about that? So it brings all the information in for us. And that's where Mr. Scott comes in. A lot of times he gives his expertise remarks on something architectural that maybe we hadn't thought about. And so
And not everyone always agrees on everything, but
No.
if they don't agree, then they'll put forth information so other people understand, well, why do you feel that way about that? And then that opens up everybody's eyes to certain things too, yeah.
And then we eventually have a vote.
All right, and then Chair Stevens will call for the vote because that's her job. And people can either vote in the affirmative, negative, or they can abstain. All right, any questions about Robert's rules?
And Robert's Rules sits right there by me up on the dais.
And generally, if Director Bunich and I see you kind of getting off track, we can bring you back on track to a degree. We're better when our city attorney is with us because we don't sleep with Robert's rules at night, do we?
Sure do.
All right. Okay, so commission powers and duties. This is what the commission has the power to do. The commission has the power to conduct ongoing surveys and research to identify Wildwood's historic buildings, landmarks, and historic features. We keep a report available for public viewing. So what you see up on this screen is one of our survey sheets. So we have a whole inventory of one-page descriptions of all of Wildwood's historic buildings, which are defined as buildings that were built 75 years or greater ago. And so every once in a while, or every year really, but we've been tending to do multi-years, we have to update our inventory and survey some new properties that just reached that age threshold. So I did not put this whole inventory in your binders. There is a section that says City Historic Property Inventory. We're actually in the process of an update, so I didn't feel like we would have an updated document. But I did put the final Wildwood Historic Survey report from 2014, 2015, which is when we first did a really big survey effort. And so those are some recommendations that came out of that. But basically, we need to identify where are Wildwood's historic buildings, because if we don't know where they are, we can't exactly do much about them, can we?
Excuse me, Rob,
Yes.
I have an appointment, another appointment I gotta get to, but I
Okay.
wanted to be here for part of the evening, so glad to be with you guys. Reach out if you need me, all right?
Thank you so much for coming. Enjoy your big binder full of information.
Yes, my reading material for bedtime.
Later, yeah.
Yes, I will be administering that. All right. Next. The commission recommends historic designation to city council of significant historic property, historic buildings, landmarks, and historic features. So we have two registers for this. So these are legally designated historic buildings at the local level and at the national level. So the federal government has something called the National Register of Historic Places. And you have to go through like a pretty lengthy legal process to get a historic building submitted to that register. And if it gets submitted to the register or actually designated, it means that it was really significant to this nation's history and is a really good example of that history today. So that's the National Register. That's properties of national significance. It's more of an honorary title, but it opens the door to a lot of funding opportunities. At the local level, we have our Wildwood Historic Register. So these are properties that are significant to us locally, our local history. And we have a really neat little plaque that if you do get designated on our program, you get a plaque. But we have more regulatory authority as a local government. So if you get put on our Wildwood Historic Register, there's usually some things that must go before the commission for review. Because there's just a greater threshold for those buildings to meet, because we want to see that they maintain their historic integrity, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Any questions about our Wildwood Historic Register or National Register, or comments? Okay. Secondly, this commission gets to recommend to City Council what regulations, guidelines, and policies would best preserve our historic assets in the city of Wildwood. So we can make recommendations for that. But this commission also gets to do fun field trips. Why do we do these field trips, Chair Stevens?
Go see what's there.
Yes. This commission has the authority to review the ordinary maintenance, new construction, alterations, demolitions, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, of all of its historic properties. So anything on our historic building inventory, we have the authority to have a first look before anything significant changes there. So that means we get to go on cool field trips where you get to go into historic structures with the commission and look around at some pretty fascinating architecture sometimes. I mentioned historic integrity earlier. What do you think historic integrity means? Anybody? What does integrity mean? If someone says you have integrity.
I don't know how to like describe it. Like you're like credible, like trustworthy sort of.
Exactly. So historic integrity means that you are a credible example of a certain period of historical significance. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the building is in great condition. It can be almost falling down and still be a good example of that period. It means it looks like it did back in that period when it was historically significant to the community in some way. So like a big event might have occurred there, or someone famous might have owned it, or there might be a certain architectural style that was important to that time. So that's what historic integrity means for historic preservation. So when we go to these buildings, they can be fallen down, you know, all around us, but it might still be a very good example of history.
Also, like previously from the meeting, it was talked about like how if like Road of Route 66 could talk, like what history would it convey? In a similar way, I think like historic integrity is like if a historic building in the Wildwood community could talk, what history would it communicate to us?
I think that's a great way of putting it. All right. So this commission also provides what is called technical assistance to owners of older historic assets. And by technical assistance, I mean this commission provides its recommendations and advice in some cases. We have folders for those who might be investing in Wildwood's historic real estate. We talk about all the tax credit programs that are available and grant opportunities. And we try to give information about the Wildwood Historical Society and some other resources that might help them with their historic property. We also get to recommend to the city council programs and policies and economic incentives to encourage preservation of our historic properties. And one example that we're currently considering is a proposed Route 66 grant program. So this would be a grant program administered by the city to owners of historically significant buildings along our Route 66. And so we're talking about that at the commission level and working it through the hierarchy up to city council. But this is an example of us making recommendations to city council to help our historic wildwood. We're also working on a plan, which you may be aware of after volunteering for our History Tent event. But this plan is going to give us an idea of, how do we promote the preservation of Wildwood's history well into the future? What are our milestones? And also, where are we currently? What is the state of historic preservation today? What's going on in our community that we need to be aware of as we go forward and do the work that we do? And typically with these types of plans, we want to do that with a lot of community engagement and input, which is why you're at the History Tent volunteering. Any questions? All right, participate in land use decisions and other city activities affecting registered historic properties and districts. So sometimes we might have a review of like a parks plan or a change to a property that maybe isn't historic in itself, but it might have some historic assets or something that the commission needs to comment on or have a say in. And so I have some examples, like anything going on with our Village Green project. The Historic Preservation Commission is typically going to be given some comment on. Our Bluffview Park, when the city did a redesign of it and added some new improvements, the commission had a say in that because there were some architectural remnants from the house that used to be on that property. So we have say in that, but also if we had like a big citywide planning effort, the Historic Preservation Commission would have say in that. So just some larger big picture city initiatives. And then finally, the city does acquire and restore historic properties sometimes. We get donations, we might make a purchase. In this case, I have two examples. We have the Old Pond School, which was donated to the city, and then the city spearheaded its restoration. And then we have the Essen Log Cabin reconstruction project, which you may know we are reconstructing the Essen Log Cabin in the Village Green, and that was donated to us as well. So we actually deal in, we actually have a hand in historic property as well. We adopt bylaws. Code gives us that authority. We can also schedule joint meetings with other entities. Planning and zoning is especially called out. And it was funny when I was designing this presentation, I was thinking we never hold joint meetings, but we might very well be holding our first joint meeting here shortly. So we'll see. But you might have an opportunity to witness one of those. But sometimes we might meet with a different committee or entity to discuss a certain issue that we're both looking at the same time. All right. Current projects. Any questions about your role with the commission, what the commission does?
Robin,
Yes.
you mentioned the field trips.
Yes.
Are they aware tomorrow afternoon?
We currently do not have signed waivers and they are not currently appointed as official youth members. So I think we'll wait till the next field trip for them.
Okay. Because this is something we're going to be originally. I guess maybe you can explain more what's happened since then. We were first notified these people had this old house they wanted to tear down, which means we've got to go look at it, try to convince them, or look at it. We feel it can be saved, try to convince them that you don't need to tear it down. This is what you can do with it. But then found out these people changed their mind. They want to renovate it. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're at the
They're
very
over
early
there.
stages.
Look at, so it's a shame because it would really be fascinating, to talk with these people and see what do they see in their house? What can we do to help them improve it, not ruin it? We're not gonna put, vinyl siding over it with the old brick or whatever. It's just how we can help them do a good job of restoring and keeping these old buildings historically with historic integrity. So I'm sorry.
You'll have opportunities in the future, but we gotta cover all our bases first. But it is a fun perk of being on the Historic Preservation Commission is that you get to go on field trips. All right, we talked about the Historic Preservation Plan. And I think you are both well aware of the Essen Log Cabin Reconstruction Project. Lucky, are you aware of our Essen Log Cabin project? So the city was donated a cabin in 2015. And right after the cabin was donated, it disappeared over the week before Thanksgiving. And there was a big to-do about it. The police were involved. It really did poof. And it turned out that someone with local knowledge of the area had stolen the cabin in the night with a crew for its logs, so we could sell the logs on eBay or something like that. No, I'm kidding. But yes, the logs were recovered by our police, and we were able to continue forward with this cabin's reconstruction. And it's been a long project. Mostly because we didn't have any information about the cabin before it was disassembled. So normally you would tag all the logs so you know where they're going to be put later. We weren't able to do that. So now we have architects, historic architects who have some special expertise in log cabins trying to piece together, you know, where these logs were originally in the cabin and kind of do some investigative work on it. So. But we're finally here. It's what, 8 years later, we're finally at the point where we're ready for it to go into our village green. And you might just see a cabin here by the end of the year. We'll see.
A little side note on that. I mentioned I came to the commission to present about my family and was not on the commission at that time. That was the night it was announced that the cabin had disappeared, and the buzz going on between, because I was seated over there where Lucky's mom is, and the buzz around here was Joe's going, that was the night? Yes, that was the night, Joe. What do you mean stolen? How can you steal a log cabin?
And what was crazy is apparently it was just happening that year because in Washington State, they had a stolen cabin there as well. And
Logs are very valuable.
yeah, logs are valuable. So you wouldn't think that a cabin would get stolen like that.
Now my reaction was like that, how can I?
But you can go online and Google Essen Log Cabin and all the newspaper articles and everything about it, you can read online.
And so now it has almost a new history associated with it, aside from what its original history. And this is what our future village green may look like when it is all said and done. So we're currently working on that project as we speak. So you might have seen all the dirt in that property adjacent to City Hall. But this is where, this is what it will look like. And let's see, is this City Hall, Joe?
Yes, ma'am.
Community garden. So the cabin somewhere like here?
Yep.
Okay. So that's where the cabin will be. And this will be the city's event space. We'll have our farmers market there, concerts, lots of activity. So with Route 66, I felt like I could stop talking for a minute and let the Route 66 Student Task Force talk to you instead, just to give you a taste of kind of what we were working on last year. That's assuming I can do audio. You know how to turn on the video audio and Zoom?
God, I apologize.
Share sound. Let's try now.
Take my way, it's the highway, that's the bed.
No, sorry.
Hello and welcome to our Route 66 outdoor showing of cars. We are the Route 66 Task Force and we are so excited for the event tonight. Before we show the movie, we thought we would tell you a little bit about why we are here.
For the past year, we've been working on Route 66 revitalization efforts in Wildwood. Route 66 has had such a huge part in the formation of our town culture and identity, and we are trying to share the rich history of Wildwood's portion of Route 66 with the community.
For the past few months, we've been designing a Route 66 themed park to hopefully be built here in Wildwood.
You may have visited our booth at the Celebrate Wildwood event, or even heard about our student design competition, where a 3D modeling class from the South Springs Middle School designed the main photo op element for our park.
Did you know on April 30th, 1926, businessmen Cyrus Avery and John Woodrow sent a telegram to Washington, D.C. from their hotel in Springfield, Missouri, suggesting the name 66 be given to their new highway running from Chicago to Los Angeles.
That makes Missouri the birthplace and April the birth month of the name Route 66. This April, the Student Route 66 Task Force is celebrating Route 66 Month. Along with our movie event, the whole month of April, we are holding a scavenger hunt along the historic corridor in Wildwood.
Multiple prizes worth over $1,000 in value will be rewarded raffle ticket style. There's 30 clues, but the more places you visit, the more raffle tickets you get.
From an old toy factory to a speakeasy, we've planned some really cool historic sites for you to visit. Actually, you're at a scavenger hunt event right now. If you want to join the hunt and compete for some of our prizes, you can sign up through the page on the City of Wildwood's website or obtain an official guide at the table.
If you want to know more about the scavenger hunt, our student task force, or the history of Route 66, we will have a table in the back with our task force members and information. We'll also be selling these awesome Route 66 t-shirts and giving away Wildwood Points of Interest maps. You can find them in the bathrooms to your left, and tonight, Miss Becky's Salsa Shack and B&B Theaters will be hosting our concessions.
Shout out to our amazing vendors and Wildwood businesses for making tonight happen.
And thank you all so much for being here tonight. We hope that we inspired you to learn a little bit more about Route 66 and get involved in the revitalization. Enjoy the movie!
So this was a movie, or this was a pre-movie video that our Route 66 Student Task Force did. When was it, 2022? So about a year ago? 2023. Okay, yeah, it was spring of 2023. We had a Route 66 month here in Wildwood, and we had an outdoor movie production of cars in our field. And we also had a Route 66 scavenger hunt. So this was all part of our efforts to revitalize Route 66. I also wanted to show you this video so that you had a taste of our Route 66 roadside park project and some of the involvement there. But our Route 66 Student Task Force was in existence for a year. And they did a lot of great work for us. They created a lot of videos. We have a Route 66 tour video of the corridor with different clips. Everybody chose a landmark and recorded a couple-minute clip, and we strung them all together so that anyone could get a sense of our Route 66 who watched the video. And we have numerous gems like this. Okay, yes. But anyway, today, our present Route 66 focus is, as noted, on potentially a Route 66 grant program to help property owners get their buildings up to snuff and also be a part of the 100th anniversary celebration of Route 66. That anniversary is 2026, so we need to get in gear as a commission as to how we're going to excite the Wildwood community and get them involved in our revitalization effort. So that could look like events, it could look like themes for different some of our pre-existing events. Really just the sky's the limit. Give us your ideas. We're glad to have some young people energy on the commission. We're also going to be talking about Route 66 a lot as part of our historic preservation planning effort. And that will be an opportunity to really engage our business owners and property owners and everybody who's invested in our Route 66 historic corridor. Provide assistance to our owners of properties along Route 66 and also explore potential partnerships to help. In some cases, we are looking at historic buildings that are on Route 66, and the city is looking to see if there's any way we can partner with the owners of those buildings to make a successful restoration preservation project. But we're still in the talks. Any questions about Route 66 revitalization? Are you familiar with Route 66 history, Ayushi?
I hear about it a lot, so I'm getting more familiar with it the more I'm hearing you talk about it, but.
You guys know what I mean by revitalization? So basically, we're trying to bring back to life our historic Route 66 corridor, get people excited about it, get people out on the streets, make it a successful economic development commercial corridor. So really helping to make the businesses there thrive, to make the history a little bit more in the public consciousness. So people are excited to visit the corridor because they know the stories that exist there and want to see, some of these historic buildings and kind of be a part of living history. Really draw tourism to the Wildwood region. So bring people from, either other parts of the nation or even the region to this area to, again, the more people we bring into Wildwood, the better our businesses are going to do. So a lot of the historic preservation work we're doing with Route 66 is really about economic development and bringing business to Wildwood so that our small businesses can do well. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right, so another initiative we're looking at, and this is in the far northern part of Wildwood, is really bringing to the public awareness some of our African American history in Wildwood, which we actually do have a significant amount. And this would happen along our Monarch Chesterfield Levee Trail. So I don't know if any of you are cyclists. You familiar with the Katy Trail? Yeah, okay. So the Katy Trail, and unfortunately, I don't think I have this map zoomed out enough. I think this might be the Katy Trail. So the Katy Trail is actually on this side of the Missouri River in St. Charles County. And it connects with the Chesterfield Monarch Levee Trail, which goes along the Missouri River in Chesterfield and Wildwood. Actually, that's, yeah, I am looking at the right thing. Yeah, so there's a trail here, and it takes you to Howells Island, which we talked a little bit about. Remember the crazy person who boated and rode horse and school bus to Eureka High School. But yeah, so that's this region. And recently we were approached by an area historian who actually, she's working on some national projects. But there was a freedom seeker called Archer Alexander. Any of you familiar with Archer Alexander's story? Well, he was a local enslaved person in the area who during the Civil War overheard a plot to destroy a bridge that was important to the Union Army. So he actually escaped from his owner and informed the Union troops that this was going to happen. And he was found out. So he had to escape for his life at that point. And he escaped over the Missouri River by boat along with 15 other slaves. And at the other end of the river, they were captured. But he escaped again, made it into St. Louis to the home of Elliot. William Elliott Greenleaf, I want to say, Greenleaf Elliott. He was one of the founders of Wash U, and he took him in, but he was found out by his enslaver. And he had to go to a military hearing because we were under martial law at that time. And at that military hearing, he was granted his freedom. A couple years later, President Lincoln was assassinated, and a group organized a memorial for him in Washington, D.C. in Lincoln Park. And it was decided that Archer Alexander, due to his significance to the effort in this area, that his image would be on that memorial alongside President Lincoln's. So his image is on that memorial in Washington, D.C. So he's actually a national figure in our history. And that exciting crossing and capture happened just north, unfortunately, of Wildwood. I can't claim that it was in Wildwood, but it was just north of our borders. And we're thinking it's not more than a couple parcels north at this point. We've been doing more research. But we had the idea, after being approached about this story, that not only might we designate that site to the National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom, which is a national program, kind of like the National Register of Historic Places, but that we might actually create a whole African-American history trail, because Wildwood has a lot of African-American history. We have the Westland Acres Historic Community, which is an African-American community in Wildwood. It's made up of descendants of individuals that were enslaved in the Coleman and Tyler plantations and some others in the area, which were some of the largest slave-owning plantations. And when the Civil War happened, and after the Civil War, they separated and they started owning property themselves and forming new churches. And this is where that Westland Acres community was set up. So we have their history. We also recently did a project where the commission worked on a historic marker to honor the United States Colored Troops. And if you aren't aware of the United States Colored Troops, are you familiar with the United States Colored Troops during the Civil War? So basically during the Civil War, African-American men in certain states were given the opportunity to fight in the Civil War on behalf of the Union in exchange for their freedom. So at the end of their service, they were freed. And we had 15 men that were identified in the Wildwood area that we honored with a historic marker. We named them on the marker and spoke to that history here in Wildwood and Missouri. So anyway, these are just some of the stories that we might talk about on that trail through like a series of signage or monuments, that kind of thing. Any questions about that project? All right. In other news, we do have a Wildwood history book. This was released just last year, and we're still working very hard to get it in the hands of every resident in Wildwood. But it's pretty much a completed project, but it does give the city's history from prehistoric times all the way up to present day. And I believe you two both have a copy of that book right in front of you. And finally, we have our points of interest map. Just a couple years ago, we completely redesigned our map. We call out Route 66. We call out our whole map of Wildwood, our town center area, and we identify all the historic points of interest in Wildwood upon it. Well, I don't have the back of it, but we also had scenic drives to 20. We have 20 different scenic drives on the back of it as well that give the history of Wildwood's various roads and why they were named such, and its connection to some of our early settler history. And that brings us to the end of orientation. So that should give you a good taste going into your service with the commission. Please do peruse your binders. I have worked very hard to give you absolutely everything you need to be successful in your service within one binder. I have all of our most current project materials. Director Vunich is excited to show you the points of interest map that is also in your binders. So this is a great historical research or resource as well. But if you have any questions, let me know. I would hold on to these binders well after your service, because any future job opportunity, any future interview you might have, this might be a good prop to take with you. Just a thought. All right, any questions? I know I've overloaded you with information today. Hopefully we started it off fun. Okay. Not, would you like her to get a book? Okay, we would like to give you a book as well. So if you come upstairs with me after the meeting. Let's see what's on our next bullet.
After I talked with the city attorney, we'd be doing the waivers and things like that. But that attorney's a slippery dude.
So we are a little behind on your waivers and releases. I will email those to you. Like, again, your parents are going to need to sign those before you come to your first meeting and activity. We kind of put you under the radar, I guess, at your first tent. But at this time, really, I want to hear your questions, impressions. Like, is there anything that kind of sparked your interest that you'd like to learn more about?
I felt like the trail, the African American one, that was like really cool. I like that idea. And can't wait to read more about it in the binder.
Well, there's not much about it because we're at the very early stages of that project. But I will say that we're hoping to have a very strong student engagement component of it. And so you might have an opportunity to step up as young leaders in that capacity, especially if you're interested.
And, it's a historic marker that she showed a picture of for the colored troops. We have it ready to be made, but we haven't gotten all the permissions for where we want to place it. So once we do, we did have a meeting out at Babbler State Park, and one picture of the Civil War soldier that you saw up there, Elijah Madison, there were 15 descendants of the Madison family who were there as we talked about the possibility of having this marker. They were so excited. I mean, they were just thrilled. And so we want to plan a really nice affair, inviting lots of people in for the dedication of that marker. You'll be involved in that too. So, and I do a lot of genealogy of our families, and I am a cousin of former President Madison, and they're trying to put a connection to this Madison family who came with the Colemans as slaves to their plantation here, to see if they came, because they came from, the Colemans came from the same area where President Madison's home is. And so they're trying to connect them in. And I mentioned this to a couple of the people afterwards, that I am a relative of President Madison. And suddenly I had all these great big hugs. We're family. They were just so excited. We're family. I said, of course. So it's exciting.
Speaking of that project, it's an example of our partnership with the Wildwood Historical Society. They're actually under contract by the city to do some of the research and background for the United States Colored Troops and the Coleman and Tyler slave plantation history as well. So, so we do work very closely with that organization.
You expressed interest in one subject, and I think just ask all of you to look, if you see something like that, grab it and do something with it. And talk it up and get more people involved in it, because there's so many different things that could stand a lot more man hours on effort. But if you see something you're interested in, something about it, bring it up. We want to hear from it. And you can bring more people into it with them. So please, look for things that catch your interest.
Lucky. You aren't, just because you're not up there on the dais having discussions with the commission doesn't mean you can't be involved. This is very much a city with a public participation process. We have public comment at the beginning of every meeting. So if you see something that's being discussed and you're excited about it and want to give input to the commission, that's your opportunity. You're certainly welcome anytime. It's very open to the public and we'd love to have you.
Thank you.
So the African American History Trail, is it kind of like a timeline walk, or is it just gonna like have like plaques inside?
We're at the very early stages. So we're going to get the community together and then we're going to probably determine what exactly it's going to look like. The initial idea by staff is, it would be interpretive signage, not necessarily a timeline walk, but maybe it is a timeline walk after we start having discussions, just like the Route 66 roadside park. Remember how it had to start somewhere and then we had discussions and over time we built on those discussions and we started, we ended up with a park design. It's a very similar process in that we're always open to that input and, working together as a community to put something exciting, bring it to life. So, answer your question.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, thank you so much for everyone coming out here and participating in this youth member orientation. I'm so glad everyone showed up and we had a good time here. If you have any questions about what we discussed at the orientation, if you look through your binders and you're like, what's this? Please don't hesitate to reach out to either me or alternate Quarternick, who is excited to be a mentor,
And I'm on
or
board.
really just any of our commission members. They're all very approachable.
And our emails are they're on a list of the members of the commission in your binder. So you can find our emails and get in touch with us.
Yes. And after your appointments, don't forget your appointments on this Monday. It will be right at the start of the city council meeting at 6:30, so make sure you be there. But after your appointments, you will no longer be youth members. You will be addressed as official commissioners at our meetings. So congratulations, we're excited.
And if you've never been to a council meeting before, you do have to go through security. So you might want to be careful about what you have in your pockets because they all have to be emptied. And
That's a good point.
yeah,
We don't have that security for Historic Preservation Commission
for
meetings,
council.
but for city council, you will go through that. All right.
so I don't want you to be taken off guard.
Sorry, Mr. Scott wanted some volunteers for tomorrow. I'll be with her. If you're okay, I can bring her as well.
Tomorrow?
Sure.
Oh, for the site visit? No, what this site visit is the commission touring a very old building that is falling down around our ears. So I think before we start extending that invitation, we need to sign waivers and
They need to be official.
yes.
There'll
But
be other times we'll be.
yes,
doing
there will be
some
other
visits.
times.
Very interesting to learn from someone who's like so interested. I never thought about like learning the history of a home, which is interesting myself to learn about.
Thank you for bringing her out. We're excited to engage her.
Farm.
Yes.
I'll do that.
Yes, I think I will send you one for
Sure.
both of you.
Always looking for volunteers for our boards and commissions,
Yeah,
task force committees.
there's well over 100 volunteers on helping the city at anytime.
Please, don't be bashful.
Like, well, I'm an ambassador for Greenway Trails. And they are doing some revitalization of they lay trails across the city and everything. I was just thinking maybe we should they encourage us to go take pictures of the trails around the area, sent to them so that they can post it and they can also support any activities going on around in the area. So this they call Great Towards Greenways. So So I threw some Route 66 trails and send the pictures there.
Our favorite partners.
Okay.
They're great. And we have a lot of trails and greenways in Wildwood.
Some of which helped us fund.
Okay.
Chair Stevens, would you like to close the meeting?
Thank you, everyone. I've even learned additional things this evening, so please don't feel overwhelmed. It's a lot to present, but there's a lot of things out there that we need to get out before everybody. So we're so glad you're coming on board. We're excited, and it's going to be, as former commissioner and chairman of the commission, always referred to our commission, and he had served on several different ones in addition to the city council. He said, the Historic Preservation Commission is the fun commission. And it is. We have fun in what we do because it is so exciting. And it's so heartwarming to see the excitement that you youth present, because it gives us hope. So thank you. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting without a motion, since we don't have a quorum. We can't. But see, you learned a little something about Robert's Rules of Order tonight. But thank you so much. I'm coming to see you all